Disney has produced a number of perfect films. Their first two, Snow White and Pinocchio, are stylistic masterpieces, as is Bambi. I don't know if I could even talk about Snow White. My love for the voice performances and the art direction is beyond words. Pinocchio, despite being iconic and having its own theme park attraction, feels like the middle child of Disney films. People say, Snow White, that set a precedent and got a special Oscar. And Fantasia, hands off on that one.
All I hear all day long is, Marcia, Marcia, Marcia!
Pinocchio has all the background painting and character animation glory of Disney's best.
Look, Kitty, look!
But it also offers the completely insane creativity of Fantasia. The book, which is nightmare fuel, is pretty much discarded, and what we're left with is, well, great soundtrack. Pre-Sherman Brothers, Lee Harline just knocks it out of the park here. Second, the background paintings. Heavy influence by Gustav Tungren here. Just as detailed as Snow White. Maybe not as dreamy as Tyrus Wong's stuff on Bambi, but they're still shooting for a fairy tale storybook look, before the days of forging Disney's own fairy tale look with the help of Mary Blair and Ivan Earl. I can't lie to you. I keep coming back to this movie as a Christian. Obviously, you have the protagonist who knows he's not a normal human, and his perfect dad, with whom he shares no genetic connection, is a carpenter, given life by a mystical woman clad in blue. And then after doing the whole Jonah thing, then he gets resurrected. The biblical elements of this movie are kind of overwhelming. But on the other hand, Pinocchio doesn't exactly fit the mold, because while Jesus was supernaturally wise from childhood, Pinocchio's kind of a dummy. I mean, no shade, the kid is 6 years or 3 days old, so he's easily tricked into drinking and smoking and vandalism. The I've got no strings number kind of blows my mind. Pinocchio is bragging about being independent, and he stumbles, and he breaks off a piece of the floorboards to make it look like he has a beard, which wouldn't be weird, except it's preceded by 5 minutes of hot marionette dolls telling them that his savoir-faire is ooh la la, and your arms is free to love me by desire Z, or if you would woo, I'd bust my strings for you. He ends the number literally tied up in strings. This movie is about waking up as a preteen one day and realizing that you have absolutely no clue what to do about ethics, women, work, or anything. The most fascinating character here is the middle-aged Jiminy Cricket. He's vastly expanded from his 3-page appearance in the source material to be our narrator and our audience surrogate. Jiminy starts out as a guy just looking for a place to warm his self, but he's selected by the Blue Fairy to act as Pinocchio's conscience, which is in itself kind of an insane concept. She's just given sentient life to a wooden puppet, and then she asks somebody else to be his conscience? The theological implications are kind of mind-blowing. But Jiminy Cricket's name in itself is a euphemism, so what are you gonna do?
Yeah, Jiminy Cricket, right!
Jiminy is a wonderful character, voiced perfectly by Cliff Edwards, but the movie quickly demonstrates that he's flawed. He's got a thing for the ladies, he squats at Geppetto's house but complains about the accommodations. He quickly gives up on Pinocchio when the puppet finds success elsewhere.
What does an actor want with a conscience anyway?
He can't do the technical stuff. He gets angry to the point of giving up on Pinocchio right when Pinocchio needs him the most. But he persists. Jiminy Cricket, despite his weaknesses, follows Pinocchio onto the gypsy wagon. He follows him over to Pleasure Island, into the ocean, and into the very mouth of Monstro.
Open up! I gotta get in there!
And it's hard even to say the character grows. He's more revealed to be a great guy. Jiminy Cricket is steadfast, and despite his weaknesses, he sees the job through until it's done. Which means this film is full of characters that I could call Christ-like. The forgiving Blue Fairy, of course, Geppetto with his boundless love, Pinocchio with his innocence and faith in pulling people out of the deep, and Jiminy Cricket, who is all of us at our absolute best. Pinocchio's story is basically a series of temptation, most of which he succumbs to, and then he's rescued, first by the Blue Fairy, then by Jiminy Cricket, and finally Pinocchio rescues himself. While the whole thing is one long character arc, it can hardly be said to follow a traditional 3-act structure. The first third of the movie is really just mostly people trying to go to bed. Stromboli, Pleasure Island, and Monstro all pose pretty much equal dangers, so where Act 2 ends and where Act 3 begins is a little murky. You could call the movie picaresque if the hero was less naive. But a lot of early Disney flicks were literally experimental. Snow White was filmed like a live-action movie because nobody had ever done this before. Bambi moves slowly through the dreamy seasons and ends up being the best animated movie about masculinity next to The Incredibles. Maybe I'll talk about that later. Dumbo was probably the studio's first normally structured plot, but they didn't return to that formula until 1950 with Cinderella, and then from there, they never looked back. The studio got smarter and slicker. They've remained the #1 animation studio on Earth for over 80 years using that formula. But Pinocchio offers something that other kids' films rarely do. It goes really, really deep into your psyche. It doesn't shy away from dreamlike, bizarre imagery, and it teaches kids ethics with a cast of wonderful, flawed characters. I couldn't ask for more.